to 1 p.m. So the webinar is about to be today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar EDSA 2021. First of all, I would like to thank all the participants and of course all the presenters that had been prepared for today's webinar. And then, second of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Amani, as your moderator for today's webinar. And then I would like to introduce you. Okay. Before we start our webinar today, I would like to read the regulations that this activity will be delivered. And second, all participants are expected to take notes because no written materials can be delivered. And all participants must turn off the audio during the presentation. Fourth, the presentation will be held for about 5 minutes for each. Last, the Q&A session. The presentation finished. But you may ask the question. The participants may start asking the question when the presentation is already begin. You can type it in the chat box, and then in the end of the presentation, the presenter will answer your question. But if the time is still sufficient, you can raise hand and ask your question directly to the presenter. Okay, for your information also, there will be 8 presenters that will bring different materials with different theme. Okay, now without any further ado, let's start with saying basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay. Now we will have the first presenter, which is Fadilah Nurul Fatimah, that will bring a theme about why vocabulary is important. For Kak Fadilah, time is yours.
Okay, thanks for moderator to give and our audience to join this webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Fadilah Nurul Fatimah. I'm from the Education Department, Siliwangi University. In this occasion, I would like to present about why vocabulary is so important. Next slide, please. The first, I will tell you about what is vocabulary. The second, I will tell you about why vocabulary is so important, and the last is conclusions. Next slide, please. Okay, now I will tell you about what is vocabulary. Vocabulary improves all areas of communication, such as listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Richard and Nandia argue that vocabulary is a core element of language proficiency and provide much of the basis for how learners speak, listen, and write. Another definition from H. and Brown, 1995, as cited in 2014. specify that vocabulary refers to a list or set of words for a particular language or a list or set of words that individual speakers' language might use. Next slide, please. Okay, the next I will tell you about vocabulary is important. Learning vocabulary is important, especially in language. Students cannot comprehend or articulate themselves without proper vocabulary, which is why vocabulary is so essential in English language teaching. In his 1972 paper, Wilkins believed that there is little grammar, there is nothing to express without vocabulary. In general, vocabulary refers to both knowledge and description of words. Note that words are a mixture of sound that convey meaning and can be expressed in written or spoken form. And students are aware of the role of vocabulary in language learning. And Smith said that instead of grammar books, students hold dictionaries. Restricted vocabulary in a second language impedes good conversation, so vocabulary competence is also considered a vital feature of foreign language learners. According to Al-Katani, being able to create grammatical sentences is of no use. Although nothing can be communicated without grammar, without vocabulary must be perfect by learning in order to comprehend the text. And Susanto mentioned that vocabulary mastery is needed to articulate our thought and comprehend what others saying. Next slide, please. And the last is conclusions. Learning vocabulary in a second language impedes good conversation. Competence is also considered a vital feature of foreign language learners. Next slide, please. And this is references that I put on my presentation. That's enough for me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Kak Adila, for your great thought in today's webinar. As Kak Adila mentioned previously, that what is actually a vocab and a vocabulary, and next presenter, will show you what is actually the importance of vocabulary. The next presenter is Kak Muhammad that will bring the theme about vocabulary and its importance in language learning. For Kak Ridwan, time is yours.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
I'm sorry, Kak Ridwan.
Okay.
Is anyone can hear Kak Ridwan's voice? Oh, maybe Kak Ridwan has trouble. Unfortunately, some technical issue might occur during the online webinar. Okay, now let's go to the third presenter first. And then if Kak Ridwan already good with his connection, we will back to Karidwan. And then in the third presenter, we have Vicky Aulia Juliana that will present about vocabulary lesson. For Kak Vicky, time is yours.
Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, I'm Vicky Aulia Juliana. I'm from Siliwangi University. I'd like to thank you to the moderator for giving me a time and to all the audience for coming. Here I will discuss about vocabulary lesson. Next, please. Teach vocabulary. It's not difficult to persuade people to teach vocabulary. The significance between readers' vocabulary knowledge and their reading comprehension is described in one of the long and most specially established lines of research in literacy education. The relevance of vocabulary teaching is also recognized by educators and parents. Having a large vocabulary not only helps with reading comprehension, but it also allows us to engage more fully in society. Next, please. The research on vocabulary instruction. Hard and recently not out in a study for preschoolers development that many youngsters research instruction assistance for vocabulary acquisition in their daily lives. The bad news is that there is a knowledge gap in terminology, but there is some good news. Homes, school, and instructors can make a difference, according to study. The absence of high vocabulary in preschool children is mainly due to lack of experience and teaching, rather than a cognitive limitation. Snow and college found that students from low literacy home placed in high literacy classroom could reserve the trend for literacy learning. Similarly, studies support the idea that good vocabulary instruction can teach students the words they need to know to learn to read. Just as a house needs a strong foundation, so reading comprehension depends on a strong base of our language, and on reading vocabulary usually runs about 2 years behind his or her own vocabulary. Therefore, the school curriculum should expose students to rich oral language experiences, give students calculated opportunities to use and get feedback on language, and engage students in word exploration. Next, please. Okay, develop awareness and love of words of word play. These activities, materials, and resources that allow students to play with words to create a pleasant environment for word learning. You should also be a role model for your students when it comes to word learning. We may all recall learning a slow of new terms the year we had a teacher who was a die-hard punster, a crossword puzzle fanatic, or a general word nerd. Educators know the motivational value of play, and research bears this out. In the question test, students 1 point for writing a word, talking about where they hear or share it, and then using it. With little expense, instructional times, or effort, this activity turns students into learning new words in a way that positively affected their learning. They became motivated word learners. Next, please. Okay, the conclusion is research indicates that effective vocabulary instruction can make a difference. Important research-based practice include encouraging students to play with and explore words, actively teaching students new vocabulary, helping students with strategies to learn new words, independently reading to students, and encouraging students to read willingly. By incorporating best practices in your curriculum and instruction, you can instill in your student an appreciation for words and motivate students to build their vocabularies. Next, please. Okay, maybe that's enough for me. Thank you for your nice attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Vicky Aulia, Big Moderator.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Kak Vicky, for your excellent presentation. Previously, Kak Vicky showed us about how actually to teach vocabulary to, to others. For example, to young learners, to high school students. It can be applied though. All right. Now, before we continue to the next presenter, I want to make sure that whether Kak Ridwan already in the room. Hello, Kak Ridwan. Are you there?
Yes, hello. Hear my voice?
Okay. Thank God. It's already clear now.
Sorry, back then my Wi-Fi is shut down.
All right. Now let's go back to. Okay, here. Okay, now Kak Ridwan will deliver materials about vocabulary, and it's important. Without any further ado, for Kak Ridwan, time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Presentation. In this occasion, I'm going to present my presentations, and my presentation title is Vocabulary and its Importance in Language Learning. Next, please. This is me. Let me introduce myself. My name is Untitled Chapter, and I'm from English Education Department, Siliwangi University. Next, please. In my presentation, I have four main parts, which the part is, first is what is vocabulary, the second is the importance of vocabulary, the third is aspect of vocabulary knowledge, the last is developing a love for vocabulary learning. Without wasting many times, let's get started. Next. Okay, what is vocabulary? Just like Fadilah mentioned before, research 2002 notices vocabulary is the core component of language proficiency and provides much of the basis for how well learners speaks, listens, read, and write. And according to Lins 2005, and as a cite in Awaludin 2013, states that learners' vocabulary development is an important aspect of their language development. The acquisition of vocabulary is essential for successful second language use and plays an vital important role in the formation of complete spoken and written text. In English as a second language, or ESL, and English as a foreign language, or EFL, learning vocabulary items plays a vital role in language skills, in this case, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, according to Nation 2011. English vocabulary is taught as a foreign language to children learning English in the second language. So, vocabulary can be defined as the words of a language, including single items, phrases, or chunks of several words. Next, please. Next is the importance of vocabulary. Vocabulary is important because it's the basis of all language. Vocabulary is essential in language teaching, as without it, students cannot understand others or express their own ideas. As the British linguist David A. Wilkins, 2015, eloquently put it, without grammar, very little can be conveyed. Without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. Vocabulary is ultimately expression. Having an extensive vocabulary will help you express yourself clearly and communicate well with clarity. If learners like vocabulary, they soon discover that their ability to comprehend or express themselves is limited, according to the Curriculum 2001 and Nation 2001 and cited in Susanto 2017. According to Rivers, as cited in the NAN 1991, vocabulary is essential for successful second language use. Without an extensive vocabulary, the learner will be unable to use the structures and function, and we may have learned for comprehensible communication. Next, please. The third is aspect of vocabulary knowledge. The concept of the word can be defined in various ways, but three significant aspects teachers need to be aware of and focus on are form, meaning, and use. According to Nation 2001, The form involves pronunciation, spoken form, spelling, written form, and any word parts that make up these particular words, such as root and suffix. Teachers need to be aware of their students' strengths and weaknesses in English vocabulary. For the meaning, according to Lado, as cited in Mardianawati 2012, when the teacher delivering the students about the meaning, the student should explain the words. A teacher should explain the words have more than one meaning when it is used different contexts. In order to discover the meaning, the teachers can use ways such as guided discovery and using dictionary. In 40 years, according to Mardianawati 2012, word use is how a word, phrase, or concept is used in language. Word use may also involve grammar and thus be the subject of profound analysis. Next, please. And the last part is developing a love for vocabulary learning. Teachers and students alike need to be in habit of learning English vocabulary. Whatever their personality and learning style, both teachers and students can develop a growing love for English vocabulary learning and naturally share the passion for words and phrases in many languages. State as Waode Almiani said that in effort to increase the quality of quantity of vocabulary, students also increase their life, attitude, develop their conceptual and knowledge. Therefore, teachers should use a good technique and strategy to increase the students' English vocabulary in the teaching and learning process. Next, please. Next, please. And this is my reference for my presentations. And thank you very much for your attention. I'm sorry if the beginning my Wi-Fi is shutting down. And thank you for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Kak Ridwan, for your excellent presentation. Yeah, like technical issue in online webinar is normal. Okay. Or expose us to the important vocabulary that it is actually really crucial or the core component of language learning and language proficiency. Okay, now I will bring materials about vocabulary is basic, but the class has less support. So let's jump to the presenter. For Kak Aderiki, time is yours.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Firstly, thank you for the moderator. And then Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First, I want to say thank you for all of you who attend to this webinar. I want to give you a material about vocabulary is basic, but the class has less support. What you think about when you heard word vocabulary? In my perspective, when I heard word vocabulary, vocabulary is a hand, like our hand, a tool to reach our goal or our achievement. And vocabulary also a tool to reach our language skill. And then in the next slide, I'm Eriki, will give you the material. And then my first topic about
Hello, Kak Ade Ricky. Are you there?
Yes, I'm sorry. Can I continue my presentation or start from the beginning?
Okay. Wait a minute. This one.
Okay, I'm Adariki. I'm from English Education Department, Silawang University. And in this occasion, I will give you the material about vocabulary space, but the class has less support. And then in the slide, we can see why vocabulary is important. Vocabulary knowledge is essential to student achievement because lack of vocabulary knowledge can negatively affect learning content. Stated by Fisher and Frey in 2008. Then, a British linguist, David A. Wilkin, support their argument, and him eloquently put it: without grammar, very little can be conveyed, and without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. And then in 2015, Paul Nation noted in his paper on vocabulary learning, vocabulary is not an end in itself. A rich vocabulary makes the skill of listening, speaking, reading, and writing easier to perform. From all of this expert statement, we can conclude that vocabulary is very basic thing. Because can you imagine if you very professional in and know all of the formula of grammar, but you don't know what word you want to say? It's nothing. Then in the next slide, Beck and McCown in 1986 and 1985, they define a system for identifying words for each vocabulary instruction. Instruction designed to support students in building high-quality lexical representation of words. They define vocabulary into three tiers of level. The lowest or the first level. The words are those that are easily explained and understood. We can find this word in daily conversation and very common, like food, walk, drink, book, and many more. And in the middle, the second tier, this word is encountered in many texts, but are unlikely to be in everyday context. We can find this word in book, like almost of the poetry, poem, drama, and many more. And then the higher tier, the words are those that are domain specific. We can find this word in many social study and journal. This word is for professional person, like in engineering field, technical, biology, and many more. And then in the next slide, please. Now, this is my main point, the weaknesses of teaching vocabulary in the class. The first, narrow dimension of teaching strategies. It has been found that teachers tend to use a limited method to teach vocabulary in many Asian ELT classrooms, stated by Lorking and G in 1997 and Uy and Kim Seo in 1996. What is narrow dimension of teaching strategies? The teachers directly give the words and its meaning directly to the meaning, not in many contexts, but it just one context. I will give you the example. The word back. Back in bahasa can mean kembali, but in another context, back can mean punggung. That's why when we learn vocabulary, we must learn about the meaning in many contexts. Then the second, constraint in classroom teaching. Teachers believe that giving the meaning of words directly can be less time consuming. This statement from Morgan and Rinvolucci in 1986. Constraint in classroom teaching, it means the teachers just give us one meaning and directly to the meaning, not in any context, like the first point. And because of this, we as a student have the same feeling. The same feeling. Uh, we learn vocabulary in the class is not enough for us. We must explore more outside the class, like from the comic, book, internet, TV, and many more. And then the last, lack of deep awareness of the research findings. Teachers consider useful strategies may only be based on assumption, stated by Carter in 1998 and Tingham in 1983. Lack of deep awareness of the research findings. Teachers just use their own assumption and their own content to teach vocabulary. They're not do the research. They're not do relevant finding from the expert. They're just only on their assumption. They told about vocabulary in the class. So we also confused about the teachers when vocabulary learning. And then in my next slide, there are my references. And in the end, thank you. Maybe that's all from me. And once again, thank you for all of you. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Kak Ricky, for your excellent presentation. As Kak Ricky previously mentioned, that we can know that actually the vocabulary itself is really crucial, because as Kak Ricky mentioned before, that it's just like our hands. It is something that can achieve our goals. In communicating without vocabulary is nothing, right? Okay. Before we go to the next presenter, I would like to remind all of you that if you have any question, you can type it now in the chat box, and later on, after the presentation is over, your question will be asked to the presenter. But remember that you have to state that for whom your question is directed to, okay? All right, now let's go to the next presenter. We have Kak Anissa Fidaria that will bring a theme about the benefits of using YouTube for vocabulary learning. For Kak Anissa, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Anissa Fidaria, and the theme of my presentation today is the benefits of using YouTube for vocabulary learning. Next, please. My presentation will be divided into 4 main contents. The first, why should English? Second, what is vocabulary? The third, how can YouTube be beneficial for mastering vocabulary? And the last, conclusions. Next, please. So, why should English? In Indonesia, English is one of the primary foreign languages studied. That is because English is becoming a lingua franca. So, it is crucial for Indonesian students to acquisition English so that they can practice it with societies around the world. Therefore, the Indonesian government specifies legislation number 20 concerning the national education system, Article 37, paragraph 1 of 2003, concerning English being the only foreign language that students must learn from the junior high school level until students are in college. Nowadays, Indonesian students can learn not only in the class or material given from their teacher. There are various styles to learn English. For instance, reading novel, listening to songs, watching videos on YouTube, and so on. In this digital era, YouTube is becoming the largest device of learning, and it has become famous application video of learning because there are many things that can be learned from YouTube. There are a lot of things that can be studied from YouTube, as well as vocabulary. The language learners cannot communicate effectively without vocabulary. Next. So, what is vocabulary? Harmer 2001 mentioned that vocabulary is the central of language. He further suggests that if grammar is considered the frame of language, then vocabulary is the surface. In addition, using videos to improve students' vocabulary mastery and understanding provides language learners the experience of real-world content and context. Thus, learners can increase their language skills. Next. How can YouTube be beneficial for mastering vocabulary? Some studies have revealed the benefits of watching English videos on YouTube for students' vocabulary learning. Herianto 2018 stated, the use of YouTube for vocabulary learning provides an attractive and interesting learning environment, and that it motivated students to learn faster and better. Another research conducted by Kabuha and Elias 2018 shows that the students found YouTube to be helpful in understanding and memorizing new vocabulary. It has been supported by several studies, including that of Bacikanli 2011, who believe that as YouTube provides several videos on any given subject, the students are able to retain the words that they learn in their memory without having to get bored. Thus, there are the benefits of using YouTube to expand English vocabulary mastery. Next, please. Yeah, here are some YouTube channel recommendations from me. Learn English with TV series, BBC Learning English, learnenglish101.com, Learn English, Lingua Marina, Speak English with Vanessa, and so on. Next. So we come to conclusion of my presentation today. The first, English being the only foreign language that students must learn from the junior high school level until students are in college. Second, YouTube is becoming the largest device of learning, and it has become a famous application of video for learning. And the last, the benefits of using YouTube for vocabulary learning are that it provides an enjoyable learning environment and motivates students so that they can retain the words that they learn in their memory without getting bored. Next, please. Here are some references that I put on my presentation today. Next. All right, that's all from me. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Back to the moderator.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Kak Anissa, for another amazing presentation. Kak Anissa previously exposed us to a strategy, one of the strategy that we can use in our daily life to, gain more vocabulary, which is through YouTube. As we know that YouTube has a very, trend among us, which is really rapid today, the development of it. And then besides YouTube, there is another strategy that will be delivered by Kak Rehan Sophia Marwah that will bring a theme about strategies to learn vocabulary through reading. For Kak Rehan, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you today? I hope you're always in good condition, hopefully. So first of all, I would like to say thank you for joining this webinar. I'm so grateful that you could make it today. So let me introduce myself. My name is Sophia Marwah. I'm the sixth presenter of this webinar. In this occasion, I'd like to present the material about strategies to learn vocabulary through reading. Next slide, please. Okay, before we talk about strategies, let's talk about what is vocabulary and reading and why it's important. So Hatch and Brown, 1995, defined that the term vocabulary refers to a list of words for a particular language or a list or set of words that individual speakers of language might use. Leipzig, 2001, as cited in Mendes and Price, 2018, state that reading is a multi-phase process involving word recognition, comprehension, fluency, and motivation. Nation, 2001, also note that vocabulary is not an end in itself. A rich vocabulary makes the skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing easier to perform. It means the for us to perform better in those skills. Harvard 2007 point out that reading is useful for language acquisition, in which it provides the students more or less understanding what they read, and the more they read, the better they get at it. Next slide, please. Okay, how to learn vocabulary reading. There are different strategies to learn vocabulary. Smith 2000, as cited in Mendes and Krause 2018, explained there are 5 strategies. It includes determination strategies, social strategies, memory strategies, cognitive strategies, and the last is metacognitive strategies. Strategies use the reading of or determination strategies. 2000, as cited in Mendes and Krause 2018, indicate that it includes analyzing part of speech, and roots, check for L1A, analyze any available pictures or gestures as meaning from text to walk in text, and the last is use a dictionary. Next slide, please. There are 3 common strategies used.
Are you there? All right. Thank you, Karehan. You might continue your presentation. I'm sorry for doing it.
All right, thank you. So, Clark and Nation, 1980, as cited in Carter and McCarthy, 1988, state that it consists of first one is finding the unknown word, its position of the word in the
All right. Please continue.
All right, thank you. The second step is looking at the immediate context of the unknown word. It means if it's a verb, is there any object after the unknown word? Or if it is a noun, what did he or she do? And the third step is looking at the wider context of the unknown word. Look at the wider context, including the surrounding clauses and sentences, especially if there is signposting words such as but, however, because it will give us a clue and make us know the connection between the unknown words with the context. For example, it's exhausted but elated. The word elated is not similar with exhausted because there is contradiction word of but, so it means it's not similar. And after we got the information in these steps, we can guess the meaning. And the last is check that the guess is correct with using dictionary or cross-check between our guess with the real ones. And the other strategies used to learn vocabulary to reading is analyzing affixes and roots. Affixes is a letter or group of letters added to the beginning or at the end of the word to make a new word. For example, the word unhappy from happy, the word careless from care. And roots is basic word to which affixes are added. It forms the basis of word. Some roots can be used independently or as the part of a new word. For example, the word act can be used independently, right? But it can also be a part of a new word, for example, acting. And the last is using dictionaries. Dictionary vocabulary is quite common strategies because it's very easy to use in reading or in listening, because dictionary is not just about source of information, but it can also be aids in language learning, especially in vocabulary acquisition. Next slide, please. So before I ended this presentation, I'd like to quote the meaningful word that can motivate us to learn vocabulary. So Gibran states that vocabulary enables us to interpret and to express. If you have a limited vocabulary, you will also have a limited vision and limited heart. Next slide. I think for me, thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Kak Rehan, for your great presentation. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. As Kak Rehan previously mentioned that these strategies, especially suitable for you who like reading, for example, reading novels, reading comic, and other things that might be suitable for you. So it can be applied for you who like to read. All right, now beside reading in the stages of gaining more vocabulary, we have strategies that will be presented by Winnie. Will bring a theme of using time for vocabulary development. For Kak Winnie, time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you to moderator and thank you to all participants who still stay in this webinar. Let me introduce myself. My name is Winnie Widiawati, a student in Siliwangi University. Well, let's begin. Last month, I had a conversation with my friend from different cities. In the middle of conversation, she talks about difficulties that she is having in remembering and developing vocabulary. She tried several methods but didn't give any significant result for her. Therefore, in this webinar, I will introduce an effective method using mind mapping for vocabulary development. Well, next please. In this presentation, I will divide to 4 tasks. The first is what is vocabulary? The second one is mind mapping method. The third is why using that method, and the last example. All right, let's do the first content. Next. I heard from Aderiki, as cited from David, that vocabulary is so important. Without vocabulary, nothing can pay. So what is vocabulary? As Ridwan said, and 5 stats. Vocabulary is the collection of words that individual knows, while Suhekman support that vocabulary is more than list of words, although the size of one's vocabulary matters. It's knowing how to use it which matters most. Right, vocabulary is the word that individual knows, and it should develop by ourselves. But how to develop it? Move to other side. In the second content is an effective method for vocabulary development using mind mapping. Mind mapping is one method that will give significant result for our practice. Then how to apply it? Here, 2007 asked to do it. First, you can take a piece of white paper and in landscape position. And
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Okay, you might need.
Okay, thank you. Then you can make thick and colorful brushes hanging out from your mind map. After it, again, ideas the keyword. Don't forget with capital letter. Also, you can add image to visualize every important keyword on your map. And for the last, let your mind mapping be as imaginative as possible. Well, next is. For the next is why using that method. The reason either to and remember. In Busan 19 and 93 noticed that the brain finds it easier to accept and remember visual stimuli multicolor, multidimensional mind map rather than monotonous, boring liner notes. Besides, the other one is a line with dual coding theory. We in 2010 believe that data presented with both verbal depiction and mental image can improve memory and understanding recognition. Apart
maybe there's connection, happens. So might continue.
Thank you. In this histogram or post test in the second cycle, how that the P is higher than 0.05. It means the signal regarding the effectiveness of using mind mapping in our practice. Next, please. Now I'm going to show you an example of mind map. Here we see the keyword in the center of paper, and then the thick branches. We also can see basic ideas with capital letter and submain terms and another one. This is my last content. I hope you are interested to try it right now in your regular practice, especially for then next there are my uses that I use for my presentation. Alright, this is all from me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Back to moderator.
All right, thank you, Winnie, for your amazing presentation. As Vicky previously, Kak Rehan, show us about strategy of developing vocabulary towards reading, but Kak Winnie strategy, which is mind mapping. This is useful for you who who is visual learner, which is because it involves many aspects of color, and it can be creative as much as you want to. We still have one last presenter.